The afternoon sun spilled its golden warmth across the city park, painting long shadows on the gravel path where families strolled and children played. Amidst the lively chatter and distant hum of traffic, a faint squeaking sound cut through the air. Arjun, a young man in his 20s with worn-out sneakers and a backpack slung across his shoulder, turned his head toward the sound. Just a few feet away, an elderly gentleman was struggling with a wheelchair whose right wheel shook violently every time it rolled over a small bump. Most passers-by glanced briefly, then kept moving, their eyes locked on their phones or errands. But Arjun felt a knot of unease in his chest. The old man's hands trembled as he tried to maneuver, his face etched with frustration and fatigue. Without overthinking, Arjun stepped forward. "Sir, do you need a hand?" he asked gently. The old man looked up, his eyes sharp yet tired, as though life had worn him down but never managed to dull his spirit. "This blasted wheel," he muttered, almost embarrassed. "It hasn't worked properly all week. I can't go more than a few steps without feeling like it'll fall apart." Arjun crouched down, placing his backpack on the ground. "Let me take a look. I tinker with things, it won't take long." Pulling out a small toolkit from his bag, a habit he had since he often fixed bicycles, radios, or anything neighbors brought to him, Arjun examined the wheelchair. The nuts were loose, the bearings dry, and one bolt had nearly come undone. No wonder it wobbled, he smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, sir, we'll have this running smoother than a new bike in a minute." The old man watched in silence, his wrinkled hands folded on his lap, his gaze following every precise movement. Arjun's fingers worked with a practiced rhythm, tightening bolts, realigning the axle, and finally pulling out a tiny oil bottle he carried for his own bike chain. He dripped oil into the stubborn joint and spun the wheel with a flick. It turned soundlessly, free of the irritating squeak. Arjun grinned. "There we go. Try it now." Cautiously, the man pushed the wheelchair forward. For the first time in weeks, the chair glided smoothly along the path without resistance. He gave another push, this time with more confidence, and a small chuckle escaped him. "Well, I'll be damned, it feels brand new." Arjun stood, dusting off his knees, and slung his backpack over his shoulder again. "Just needed a little care, that's all." The old man looked up at him, surprised. "You didn't have to stop your day for me. Everyone else just walked past." Arjun shrugged, offering a simple smile. "Everyone deserves to move freely, sir. If I can help, why wouldn't I?" There was a pause, and the old man's lips curved into the faintest smile, though his eyes gleamed with something unspoken, something Arjun didn't yet realize. After the wheelchair was repaired, the elderly man, who introduced himself as Mr. Kapoor, insisted that Arjun join him for lunch. At first, Arjun hesitated, feeling he had already done enough. But Mr. Kapoor's insistence was polite yet firm, and there was a spark in his eyes that suggested genuine gratitude. Arjun agreed, and they made their way to a small, quiet cafe just a few blocks from the park. The place was humble, wooden tables, soft yellow lighting, and the aroma of freshly brewed tea and fried snacks wafting through the air, but to Arjun, it felt warm and inviting. As they sat across from each other, the clatter of dishes and muted conversation around them seemed to fade. Mr. Kapoor ordered chai and samosas, insisting Arjun pick whatever he liked. The young man chose a cup of strong tea and a plate of vegetable samosas, watching curiously as Mr. Kapoor stirred his tea slowly, almost ceremoniously. "So, tell me about yourself, Mr. Kapoor prompted. "What do you do when you're not fixing wheelchairs in the park?" Arjun chuckled softly. "I fix almost anything, honestly. Bicycles, radios, little household stuff. I guess I've always liked figuring out how things work. Machines talk to me, I suppose," he said with a grin. "And I'm saving up to open a proper repair shop someday." Mr. Kapoor leaned back in his chair, eyes thoughtful. "You have a rare quality," he said quietly. "Most people wouldn't stop for a stranger, especially not for an old man like me. They'd see me in a wheelchair and keep walking. But you," he paused, a faint smile forming on his lips. "You help without expecting anything in return. That's uncommon." Arjun's cheeks flushed slightly at the compliment. "It's just, well, I figure, if you can make someone's day a little easier, why not?" He gestured to the wheelchair, which now sat quietly beside the table, rolling smoothly over the cafe floor. "Everyone deserves to move freely. That's all there is to it." Mr. Kapoor nodded, impressed by the simplicity and sincerity of the young man's philosophy. He rarely met people who saw past status, wealth, or appearances. Most were instantly deferential or cold once they realized who he was. But Arjun had treated him like any other person, with kindness, respect, and honesty. Lunch passed with light conversation, stories of childhood antics, favorite gadgets, and Arjun's modest dreams. Mr. Kapoor listened intently, occasionally laughing or nodding in encouragement. When the bill came, he reached for his wallet, but Arjun waved him off. "I'm not taking payment for the repair. Just pay it forward someday." The old man's eyes glimmered with something unreadable, but he didn't press further. Instead, he watched Arjun gather his things, slipping a quiet, "Thank you," under his breath as the young man stood to leave. Arjun gave a small wave and stepped out into the sunlight, disappearing into the bustling city streets, unaware of the silent admiration and curiosity he had sparked in Mr. Kapoor's heart. Little did Arjun know, the man whose wheelchair he had just fixed was more than an ordinary stranger. He was a man whose life had been built on influence, wealth, and vision, a man who would not easily forget an act of pure, unselfish kindness.